Hello gamers, welcome to our third video of the day. There's so much coming that I need to talk about, but I can only spend so much time doing these videos each day because there's so many other things to set up. So today I want to do requests. Requests are always the priority here to make sure we get requests attended to as quickly as possible. So today's request, to make my Matrix reference for today, today's request comes from Mr. Anderson, specifically Anderson LMHC on our Discord server, and he was asking about how somebody would field an army in the LOFT project at our largest online fantasy tabletop ever, LOFT. And he that's a good question. You'd probably, the smart alecky answer that's also true is you'd probably start by having a first level character and building them up from there. But to get a little bit more specific, more exactly what he's looking for, it probably can't really be answered in just one video, so we're doing a little series on NPC followers. Because I really appreciate the way that this was phrased. Because it goes through the idea of sidekicks and hirelings and retainers, just covering all of that stuff. So we'll just go ahead and quote here because this is a great phraseology. I'm waiting for the hireling rules video. Need to know how I get a henchman, how to make him into a retainer, and what it will cost to field an army, end quote. So like the enthusiasm, definitely something that the LOFT project is aiming for. I actually had a thought in the shower the other day where I do a lot of my thinking, and I was thinking, well, as time passes and, what if, the whole idea here, it was part of Beckme and Mystara and part of, what we're running here. If player characters do have their own countries, which they have before at my table, but it was just my table. This is like the world. This is like as many people as we have the capacity to fit around the table on the internet, a cyber table that we eventually want to have 10,000 and more people. You turn this into, the tabletop version of an MMO. So what would happen if, say, every country on the planet was a player character country? What would happen if, whatever government is running those countries, whatever NPC government is running those countries when the campaign starts, what if eventually all those countries become player character countries? And I thought, let them. That'd be cool. Let's see where it goes. That would certainly take time, and that would be a wild, wild ride. So let's get this thing started then. So today we're going to start the NPC Followers series with the simplest NPC follower that there is, and we'll eventually work our way up to having an army. So we'll just do a little bit every day. So today we're going to talk about the sidekick. A sidekick is just like Batman had Robin and Lone Ranger had Tano and Xena had Gabrielle. A sidekick is a younger character that you mentor. And sidekicks generally happen. The neat thing about sidekicks is you don't have to pay them. Pretty much every other NPC we're going to talk about in a video after this in this series, you got to pay them. Sidekicks are there for free because they're your sidekick. They have a relationship with you in the story. Now, generally in pop culture and fiction, a sidekick is a one-to-one relationship. There may be a huge Bat family now. There may be Robin and Batgirl and Red Hood and Nightwing. Well, the whole point of Nightwing is he's not a sidekick anymore. But Batman generally focuses on one sidekick at a time until they're developed. And for gaming purposes, let's say we had a party of 5 people, which is, depending on the challenge level, there's challenge levels where 5 might be a bit small, or 5 is generally a good table for online. You get bigger than that, and sometimes wallflower people start to get lost, and talkative people start to take over. But when all we have is voices online and and we don't necessarily see each other's faces and body language and make eye contact and stuff. But if we have a party of about 5 people, and if all 5 players had a sidekick, then all of a sudden there's 10 people. And so there's 5 player characters and 5 NPCs. If you had 6 people and everybody had a sidekick, now the party has 12 people in it. So the party starts to become a little more cumbersome to manage. And sidekicking is a one-to-one kind of relationship anyway. So generally what I do at my table is I restrict each player character to just having one sidekick at a time. It is possible that a sidekick could outgrow you, kind of like the idea that, you know, the first Robin became Nightwing and did, went to Bloodhaven, did his own thing, you know. But so, the Xena and Gabrielle thing reached the point where, there's a lot of emotional conflict because, Gabrielle was not really a sidekick anymore. She was like her own hero, and so the sidekick matured, and instead of Xena and Gabrielle being main hero and sidekick, it got to the point where they were like duo partners. So that's definitely something that can happen as your sidekick grows. Generally, a main hero with a sidekick has one sidekick at a time. You don't have to pay the sidekick because, well, they're there for that special relationship with you. They're not there to get a paycheck or anything. And you're mentoring them. Now, a sidekick does not have to be the same character class you are. Generally, like a fighter would have a fighter sidekick, a magic user would have a magic user sidekick, but this is not a hard and fast always rule. It could be, there could be a story where a fighter ends up helping out a magic user. Now, he couldn't teach the magic user kid spells, but he might help the magic user kid find a magical tutor or help him find some spell books or something like that. So you don't always have to be the exact same character class as your sidekick. Sidekicks do need to be lower level than you are. If a sidekick gets to the same level you are, then that means that you don't really have anything to teach them. That's the rationale here. Sidekicks gain... Now, here's where there's an XP sink to slow down people's leveling, really, or to have people prioritize what's really important to them. So, for instance, unless it happened... like, for me as a player... unless it happened in the story in a really, really cool way that was just so cool it couldn't be denied, and it was a really powerful story point that was really cool, I probably, as a player, would never on purpose seek to have a sidekick. Because what we do at our table is your sidekick levels because you share your XP with them. So a player who does not have a sidekick is going to level much faster than a character with a sidekick. Unless you want to leave your sidekick way behind. It's like, oh gee, my sidekick is still first level and me and the rest of the party, we're all like 5th and 6th. Well, that's a good way to get your sidekick killed. As kind of an XP sink, your sidekick levels if and when you share XP with them, because you are investing your time, your energy, as a mentor. You're taking part of your life and you're pouring yourself into the development of your sidekick. You're investing in someone else, not necessarily yourself and your abilities, your training, and your discipline. So that's that's kind of a general outline of how sidekicks work. If you have more questions or anything, now sidekicks I just thought of one. Sidekicks kind of come at you in the story. So they're most of the really cool sidekicks that have happened in the 41 years of my table have been situations where the group, maybe they freed a prisoner who was in a prison, or maybe there was a little orphan kid or a little urchin kid that they encountered in what was originally a social encounter, and then that contact with that orphan kid or urchin kid became an important contact to solve points in the plot or the story. Generally, sidekicks happen organically in the story. If you really decide you want one on purpose, you can look for those opportunities in the story. So that kind of covers sidekicks. Tomorrow we're going to cover henchmen. We'll talk about the difference between henchmen and retainers, and eventually we will head into. I mean, there's so much in playing the game this way that they just don't include in the modern WotC version of our favorite game, because when you become a noble, or if you set up a town, or if you've got your own court, if you became a king or a duke or some kind of feudal lord, just handling NPCs. So when Mr. Anderson LMHC was asking about fielding armies, I realized that, yeah, we'll need to do some videos about NPCs and how NPCs can work, because the whole magic of this Loft project is that we're not an MMO. We're doing it like an MMO, but it's tabletop. And so unlike, say, Dragon Age or or a BioWare game, or a Star Wars: The Old Republic, something like that, Mass Effect. These are not going to be, just computer companion NPCs. These are going to be, tabletop NPCs. So we want them fully fleshed out, as much like real people as possible, because that's what makes the magic of the NPC of tabletop, part of the tabletop experience. So, going to leave you with that thought today about Sidekicks. And by request, we're gonna, my old teachers used to say when I was in school, when one person asks a question, it's usually an indicator that there are more people out there with those questions. So thank you, Mr. Anderson. And we will continue with more videos on NPCs in the Loft project. In the meantime, I will see you around the gaming table.